Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. It's always a pleasure to see you again. This week's Parsha Bamidbar. Bamidbar, in the wilderness, is what it means. In the desert, as the Jewish people, as it says, Vayedaber Hashem al Moshe, Bamidbar Sinai. Hashem spoke to Moshe in Midbar Sinai, in the wilderness of Sinai. This Parsha always falls out right before Shavuos. And the question is obvious. What is the connection between Parshas Bamidbar in the wilderness of Sinai and the Torah being given on Shavuos? So the sages tell us the following idea. Lo nitna Torah ela Bamidbar. Hashem could have chosen no better place in the entire universe and the entire world to give us the Torah ela rather than in the Midbar, in the wilderness itself. And our Mefarshim ask a very basic question. Hashem's giving us the greatest gift that mankind has ever received. It is the Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has kept in the heavens with him since the beginning of time. And he's now bestowing this gift, this treasure, to the Jewish people. Where should you give it? How should you give it? In a wilderness, in a desert, dried out land with cracks on the ground. No water, no vegetation, no trees, no fruits, nothing. Or should you give the Torah in a paradise, surrounded by lush trees, beautiful succulent fruits, sunny skies, the nice air. Maybe you'll see out in the distance a beautiful scenery and a sunrise. Or maybe you'll be on a desert island and you'll be surrounded by the warmth of the ocean waves. And Hashem will say, I'm going to give you now the greatest gift of all. Put us in the mood. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu decide that there could be no better place in the world than to hand us over the gift of life, besides a midbar, besides a desolate desert out there by Har Sinai, by Mount Sinai? And the Midrash and the Mefarshim explain to us that what is the milah, what is the advantage of a desert? A desert is desolate. There is no noise of civilization. There's no homes, there's no cars, there's no vegetation, no trees that are growing. You don't see even so many animals around because you have to be a special desert type of an animal to live over there. It is a land that is empty from everything. And a land that is empty from everything is a place where a person is going to be able to concentrate on that which is most important. In the city, with the lights, with the cars, with the noises, with the sounds, with all of these things that we see unraveling in front of us, there's a lot of noise, a lot of distractions. It's hard to focus in on what is the true meaning of life. When a person goes to that paradise island and the sand is dripping between their toes over there, with the pina colada in another hand, it's very hard to focus in on the deeper meaning of life. But when you find yourself in a midbar, in a wilderness, and there's nothing there besides the silence of the creator of the universe, that is the place where Hashem wants to bestow upon us the greatest gift of all, which is His Torah. Because when there's nothing else taking our mind away from the event at hand, then a person is able to embrace and able to appreciate and able to understand the depths and the beauty and the glory of this Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has bestowed upon our nation. So he could have found no other place in the world, because there was no better place than the desolate lands of the Midbar, of the wilderness, where the Jewish people were living and basking with the recognition of Hashem, and we had nothing else taking us away, and then He gave us His Torah. And then we can embrace it. we can love it, we can live it, we can tell ourselves this is what life is truly all about. I want to share with you a story that took place many, many years ago. There were two Jewish roommates in college, Brian and Mark. Both of them nice Jewish boys from wonderful families, not religious, it was a regular college. And they were spiritual men on their search for the meaning of spirituality in their life. When one of the boys was in his junior year of college, he had the opportunity to go abroad. And he chose none other than the Holy Land itself, Eretz Yisrael. And while he was there, one meeting after another, one great episode of Hashgacha Pratis, of divine intervention, he suddenly found himself sitting and learning Torah in a world-class yeshiva. And he was growing by leaps and by bounds. And he loved it every single moment, every single day. And as he was having these spiritual delights in the Holy Land of Israel, he began thinking about his good friend Mark, who was back in America, who was also a spiritual being, also searching and looking. And he thought to himself, if only Mark would be here, if only he could experience what I'm experiencing, he would probably also embrace a life of Torah. So one day after he went to a shir that was extremely inspiring, Brian sat down and wrote a 13-page letter to his friend back in college in America. And this was a boy, Mark, who was there, had sampled everything. Marxism, pluralism, communism, you name it, he was into all the isms in the world. He explored and he looked into all of them. And Brian wrote him the following words: my dear friend, you have looked into every single ism in the world except for one, Judaism. Why don't you do yourself a favor? And why don't you begin to explore your heritage and your path, the illustrious Torah that we have? And then he went on for another 12 pages. And he wrote the meaning of life and the meaning of what it means to be a Jew, and how the society itself is anti that. And how if you would examine it, you would see what life is really all about. You would be amazed. You would be stupefied by the beauty and the glory that's there inside of the Torah. Now, when Mark received this letter, he thought that his friend Brian had gone a little bit cuckoo over there in the land of Israel. And he said, this is nuts. What is he even talking about? And he took the letter and he tucked it away in his drawer. And he decided, I'm not looking at this again. And he didn't even respond to his friend. About 4 months later, Mark was on a camping excursion. Where? Out in the desert. And he was with some friends and they were having a grand old time. And at a certain point he told his friends, I'm just going to go take a walk. I want to go and experience. This is God's country over here. Let me see how beautiful it is. And he goes and he takes a walk and a little bit of a hike. And the next thing you know, he's overlooking the desert plains, the vastness, the emptiness, the space that was there. And he begins thinking to himself, this is incredible. Look at this world. Who made all of this? Who designed all of this? And he begins thinking, maybe it's God. And as he's looking deeper, suddenly the words that his friend sent him in the letter so many months ago drop into his head, and he says to himself, I've looked into every ism in the world except for one. The one that is my central faith, Judaism. And there, in the desolate wilderness, as he looked out at the world around him, he began to feel inside of him that there was some truth that began to resonate. And he said to himself, if this is what it feels like for my neshama, for my soul to start to come alive, I need to investigate better. He left the desert. He went back to the college campus. First thing he did was call his friend who was sitting in yeshiva in Israel. They had a long conversation. And when his friend came home that summer to visit, they had many hours and hours and hours of conversation of what the meaning of Torah and Judaism is all about. And suffice to say, 25 years later, Mark is no longer Mark. His name is Mordechai, and he's raising a beautiful family of Torah and mitzvahs, with children who are a shining source of pride to the Jewish people. Because in the Midbar, in the wilderness, when nothing is there to distract you, that's when you find Hashem, and that's when you realize how special and how beautiful the Torah is. We should be zeicher with all of the lockdowns that we've had in the last 2 months. Hashem has done us a favor in a way. He blocked out the noise. He took away the distractions. He's allowed us to focus in the inner voice inside of ourselves that is calling out and saying, appreciate how good it is to be a Jew. And as Shavuos is coming, let us recognize how wonderful it is to be the nation that lives a life of Torah. And if we hear the message, and we hear the call, and we are honest with ourselves, and we will see what is being truly presented to us, then on this Shavuos, even if we're by ourselves, we will receive the most greatest treasure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has ever brought to this world, which is the Torah that was given in Midbar Sinai in the desert. Wishing all of you a wonderful Shabbos. A Shabbos where we are elevated to the wonderful. Wishing all of you a wonderful Shabbos. A Shabbos where our eyes are opened, our hearts are warm, and our neshamas are thriving and yearning to be able to be makabel, to receive the beautiful Torah that Hashem has given to each and every one of us. Good Shabbos.